All right, starting with a clap. Welcome to the Around the 412 Fantasy Football Podcast. I am your host, Smitty. With me once again this week, with me the last 4 weeks, with me every single freaking week on this show, my co-host, all the way from Arizona, Donnie Druin.
Hey, back at it again.
And if you're watching the stream, you know what he just did.
That's right, brother.
Back at it again. You know what? I forgot about something last week, and I gotta bring it up on here, and I gotta bring it up on every episode. We did remember to bring it up on a regular show, which is good. You know, we're being paid to bring this up, so I better start remembering to do it. We are sponsored now by Keith's Barbershop, and I'm wearing the shirt right now. Keith's Barbershop, 180 Brighton Avenue in Rochester, PA. Keith's Barbershop, an old-fashioned barbershop. It's owned by one of my best friends in the world, Christian Circle, so I am a little biased when I say that it is the best. But listen to this. On Tuesdays, $5 off for military personnel, first responders, and nurses. Christian himself served in the military, so it's obviously something that means a lot to him. So on Tuesdays, go get your hair cut. But, I mean, if you can't make it down there on Tuesdays for whatever reason, they're open 9 to 7, Tuesday through Friday, Saturday 9 to 4. Once again, that's Keith's Barbershop, 180 Brighton Avenue in Rochester. All right.
What a plug.
So,
congrats.
Yeah. So I'm wearing Keith's Barbershop shirt, and then I'm rocking the Around the 412 hat to go with it, so it's kind of showing off the collab right here on the stream.
Yeah, I'm impressed rocking the Around the 412 hat with rocking Around the 412 coming up here in a couple months.
Yeah, rocking Around the 412. If you don't know what that is, if you don't listen to the regular show, the pinned tweet is on our Twitter. This is the second year that we're doing it. The first year we gave... the mission was to raise money for kids that were less fortunate. We were trying to figure out what the best way to do that was. Last year we found the Specialty Pediatric Center in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania, which is like right by me, and they take 24/7 care of kids that require that. You know, so these kids like don't get to be around their parents or anything. They have conditions that require them to be taken care of in a hospital, literally year round, every single hour of the day. So we raised money and were able to go get them Christmas gifts and things for the facility as well. But yeah, it was really cool. This year, we're switching it up a little bit. Not that wasn't a great mission. I mean, we love doing it. This year, we're going to buy kids Christmas gifts for families in our areas, like my area, Beefy's area, Herb's area, that they, for whatever reason, they're a little less fortunate. They don't get to actually have like a legit Christmas. So, you know, maybe I understand, like, it's hard to make ends meet sometimes. You know, I see it firsthand. So, I fortunately wasn't somebody that had to go through that, but I think that makes it mean even more to me, just because I know what it's like to have a Christmas, and I want to ensure that, like, as many kids as possible have that type of Christmas that I'd get. So, yeah. Rocking Around the 412, the pinned tweet is on our Twitter. Thanks for bringing that up, because I kind of forget to bring that up on here as well. That's something else I just, like, I remember it on the regular show, but it comes to the fantasy football show, and I'm like, let's just talk fantasy football.
Hey, that's what I'm here for. We're also brought to you by the PodHub Network as well. Yeah.
Right, podhubnetwork.com. It's not just us. It's not just Around the 412. All the shows are on there. So we do have a link to our stuff on there, but as well, you know, there's... Man, you got Joey Baggy Donuts podcast on there, the Brothers, the Trash Cats, North Shore 9, which I would love to not bring up. But then there's Dugout. Bunch of good shows. The Working Stiffs, Tapestry podcast. Go check them all out.
Yeah, for sure. Enough plugs. Let's get down to it. Week 1 of fantasy football. It's finally here. The time for talk is over. It's time to start plugging in those lineups, picking up people on waivers, all that good stuff. Before we started, I just wanted to issue a public apology for even thinking about suggesting starting Jameis Winston in people's lineups.
Oh, yeah, Beefy. Is Beefy in here? Is Beefy in here? Because it's Jameis Winston. That's his QB.
I will never do that again. I am so sorry.
Well, and now he's on a short week against Carolina, so I think that's, you know, a guy to avoid. But yeah, I was big on, and I know it's only 1 week, but it's like everything, all the criticism that he's received to this point. Like, this is supposed to be the year with Bruce Arians, not up to a hot start and silencing the critics.
Yeah, you know, he's a turnover machine, and he proved that on Sunday. I tried to look at the positives and never bringing him up last week on the show. And, you know, I thought Bruce Arians might have gotten the gears turning a little bit, but I was wrong.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate for Beefy more than anybody else.
Yeah. So speaking of unfortunate things, something happened over the weekend that we got to talk about. And,
Yeah.
And Antonio Brown was released from the Oakland Raiders on Saturday, and was it 5 hours later he was picked up by the New England Patriots.
Yeah, whatever time. So we actually were just about to record on Saturday. So I want to say it was probably around 5 when I saw that he was signing with the Patriots. I don't know when he was officially released, though. I'd have to go back and look. But whatever it was, yeah, 4 or 5 hours go by. And that was really like, the team that people were seeing most. It was like, it's such a, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like, everybody saw it coming to the point where nobody saw it coming. Like, it was too, like, close to being true. It was the only possibility that I didn't think it was going to happen. I, honest to God, sat here when he got released and said, I think he's actually done playing football.
Well, yeah, that's what everybody thought, just because it was like super close to the season. So you either thought that he was done playing football, or he was going to go and sign with the New England Patriots, which kind of started out as a joke. But we all had that feeling, hey, it's probably going to happen given their track record. And lo and behold, they signed him. Originally, it was reported as a 1-year, $9 million contract.
Well, $9 million was his signing bonus. I think
Gotcha.
It was $15 million.
Gotcha. Yeah, and then they actually added on a team option for $20 million the year after, should they choose to sign him. So he could potentially be in New England for a minimum of 2 years. So it was a team-friendly deal for them. He got his guaranteed money, which is something he didn't end up getting in Oakland or Pittsburgh. But just going from a fantasy impact, how do you see him fitting into New England?
Well, I mean, what a huge uptick this is for Tom Brady, who originally started as like QB20. But I wasn't that low on him to begin with. Like Josh Gordon coming back, Julian Edelman is a PPR nightmare. And for some reason, even with Tom Brady going down, Julian Edelman was higher on most people's boards this year, which I didn't understand. But anyway, I mean, I understand Gronk retiring obviously played a role. As far as Antonio Brown goes, he's going to have to, be used to not getting 100 receptions a year, because I don't see it happening. Like, when's the last guy that even had, 80-plus there?
Yeah, I'm not super sure. So I was actually doing some research, and I didn't get to the reception portion of it. But last year was the first year New England did not have a 1,000-yard receiver since 2010. So, you look at guys that have gone through there, Gronkowski, obviously, Edelman, Brandon Cooks in his short stint there. So,
yep.
We've seen multiple guys hit 1,000 yards from the New England Patriots. And while he may not see 90, 100, catch seasons with New England just because the way their offense runs, there's so many mouths to feed, there's definitely still a probability that he's going to be productive in New England.
And to be thrown into, he gets to play his first game against the Dolphins. And that's just, I mean, literally, talk about a tune-up game.
Yeah, really, but to kind of take the counter argument for that, he doesn't know the Patriots playbook all that well. And granted, you're not going to sit Antonio Brown, one of the best receivers in the league, but if he doesn't know the playbook, how limited do you want to make yourself when facing a team like the Dolphins?
Yeah, that's a good point, because Tom Brady even said, we understand he hasn't been here. We're both going to do everything that we can to get it to click as soon as possible. And it's Tom Brady, and it's Antonio Brown. It's not like you're sitting either one of those guys or lower on one of those guys going into a game against, especially Miami, just because they haven't played with each other yet. Yeah, I would have both of them in my lineup for sure. Antonio Brown, as far as
right, you kind of have to,
yeah.
You have to have both of them in your lineup, but you do have to sit back and look at the probability that Antonio's probably not going to get a whole lot of reps on Sunday, simply due to him not being able to kind of digest the entire playbook in 1 week. And, Bill Belichick's goals are to win football games, not fantasy football games. So,
yeah.
Whether he runs the ball 4 or 5 times a game or only passes the ball 4 or 5 times a game, he's there to win. And, let's say Antonio does play a lot and the Patriots get up, 28-35 nothing, in the third quarter, they're going to start running the ball. They're going to start, turning the clock and trying to get that game to go down. So, while you still need to start him, those are some things you need to take in consideration whenever you throw him out there.
Well, that's what I was just saying. If he's going to be involved, it's probably going to have to be early, because I don't see this being much of a football game late in the game. So if he doesn't have a big first half, it could get out of hand to the point where he can't be a factor. Because like you said, they're milking the clock. Sony Michel's getting a ton of work. Burkhead. We didn't see Damian Harris active, and James White, could run the ball a little bit. He's more just a receiving back, but I think it will really be Sony Michel as like the guy that's carrying the load in the second half, with them just milking the clock at that point.
Yeah, that's something New England does extremely well. They don't try to force players into a role that they're not super comfortable with. So, you'll definitely see Sony Michel get the bulk of carries. You'll see James White get the bulk of receptions, and Rex Burkhead as well. But, while I just said, hey, you kind of need to monitor Antonio Brown's snap count, he doesn't know the entire playbook. At the end of the day, it's still Antonio Brown. The Patriots are going to find a way to get him the football.
Yeah. Man, I hate this so much. Even so, how about not necessarily from a fantasy perspective, but kind of it could possibly be from one. Chris Collinsworth during the Sunday night game, with the way that the Patriots were beating up on the Steelers, said, "If you're Antonio Brown, you're sitting there realizing this team does not need me. There's no reason he can't get out of line, because this isn't just your run of the mill team that's we can keep him around just for his talent. This team literally just won the Super Bowl last year without him. They can go back to the Super Bowl again without him. It's great to have him, but we don't need him."
Yeah, I completely agree with that thought point, but you have to think Antonio Brown knows what he's getting himself into. He knows he's putting himself in a situation where he won't be able to act like he did in Pittsburgh. He won't be able to act like he did in Oakland. So kind of to take Mike Tomlin's mantra from the Steelers, the standard is a standard, and in New England the standard is not to be a douchebag. So we'll see if that actually holds up or not. But Antonio has to know what he's getting himself into.
Yeah. I do want to touch on what I see here in the chat real quick. Cody Coleman was with me. He said the Gruden phone call interview had the feeling of a retirement announcement, to be honest.
At first it definitely did, and people were talking about him potentially getting sued for that, but it turns out that John Gruden gave whoever filmed
Gruden
it
was
permission.
A big fan of it.
No, he gave whoever filmed it permission to use that phone call before the video even came out. So obviously he was okay with it, but that whole situation is just a mess, man.
Yeah, and so Beefy came in here and said, "So Jameis Winston."
Press that.
Listen, we already touched on that. We apologize.
I did. I made my public apology.
I had to.
What up?
I had to hang up on you there real quick. It was a little lag. It was a little laggy, kind of like it was last weekend. So I figured we'd just reset. North Shore 9. I'm assuming this is Donardo. Let me know when you get to the Dolphins fantasy football section. We're gonna talk people that are playing against the Dolphins. If you want to stick around.
True. Actually, yeah. Hold on. I got it right here. Give me 1 second. Hold on.
What's about to happen? Oh, here we go.
Yep.
There it is.
Got it right here. Dolphins fantasy football right there.
Oh, man.
For those who aren't able to be with us live on stream.
Oh, yeah, there's just me people listening to this.
Yeah, unfortunately. I just held up a trash can to kind of symbolize the Dolphins fantasy offense production.
Yeah. Herb said, speaking of AB, thoughts on Tyrell Williams, buy or not sustainable?
In that offense, sure. He's the clear number one guy. I thought Hunter Renfrow was going to have a little bit more impact, but outside of Darren Waller, he's pretty much the only guy catching passes. So as long as Derek Carr can stay upright and keep throwing him the football, I don't see why he can't produce like that.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm actually was a big fan of Tyrell Williams going into free agency. I knew he did a little bit more money than I would have liked to have given him, just because, wide receiver going into free agency, the class he was going into. But I do think he's a legit wide receiver 3 flex. I don't know how comfortable I'd be with him playing as a wide receiver 2 right now, mainly because I don't know if this Derek Carr week 1 production is going to translate over. But Derek Carr looked really good against Denver. And Denver's defense was a defense that people probably targeting a lot for their week 1 matchup. That didn't pan out so well. So
no, not so well. And it was really surprising they didn't even record a sack last night as well. You have one of the best pass rushers in the league in Von Miller. And you have another one of the best up-and-coming pass rushers in Bradley Chubb. So, maybe the Raiders kind of know what they're doing in Oakland for the last year there. So we'll see.
man, imagine if it works out for them. What if they win that division?
Hey, they might. It's just depending on if the Chiefs can collapse. They already have one over the Broncos, and then we'll see what their matchup looks like with the Chargers.
Yeah, just throw like $5 down on them because they have the third worst odds or something like that. I think to win or to go to the Super Bowl or something. It's like the Dolphins are obviously last. I know that the Redskins are down there, the Raiders are down there, and the Bengals are down there. I don't know the exact order, but those are the bottom four.
Well, like, not to get off topic, but like the Bengals looked really good in Week 1 too. So maybe it's just a little Week 1 magic, or maybe we're kind of not putting enough stock in these guys.
Yeah, so they played the team that the Steelers are going to be playing Week 2, the Seahawks, and Andy Dalton threw for 418 yards. They didn't really have Joe Mixon. They didn't have A.J. Green, and they lost by a point.
Yeah.
But anyway, the other person that's kind of impacted by this, Demaryius Thomas going to the Jets now. Another weapon for Sam Darnold. My dude, who is going to get brought up, spoiler alert, again on this show, Jamison Crowder with 14 receptions. But Sam Darnold definitely needs more weapons. Robbie Anderson's still nursing a little bit of an injury. Everybody needs weapons anyway. So a Jets team bringing in Demaryius Thomas for a 6th-round pick, that's literally what we call taking a flyer. What do you think about him in the Jets offense? Do you think there's any value there?
Maybe a little, just because I think he's the most established receiver on that Jets roster now. So I'm not necessarily looking at the fantasy value of like purely Demaryius Thomas, but more so how it's going to affect the rest of the Jets team. Robbie Anderson was a 100-catch dude last year, and I think people are kind of weary on that happening again in 2019. If Demaryius Thomas is able to stay healthy, I think those numbers definitely shoot down a little bit. Jamison Crowder, sorry, I couldn't think of his name. Crowder definitely proved his worth last week, so I think Darnold's still going to try to connect with him. Le'Veon Bell, his touches may go down a little bit in the passing game, but he played every snap last week for the Jets, so I definitely think Adam Gase is keen on keeping Le'Veon Bell in the backfield. But if you're looking for like a pure like Demaryius Thomas value, sure, take a flyer on him. I wouldn't plug and play him right away. I would definitely need a couple of weeks of like consistent scoring for me to trust him. But I mean, he's still that big-bodied receiver. He can go and make plays, so why not?
Yeah. Once again, I would not be adding him right now. Because I don't think that many people probably will. I think he's going to hang out on the waiver wire for at least the rest of this weekend anyway, after their game. After that game, we'll see what his usage is like, depending on how they use him. Maybe it's somebody that we're talking about here as a waiver wire pickup. But another thing is, once again, going back to Antonio Brown, playing with Tom Brady, Demaryius Thomas now has to go to the Jets and kind of learn that offensive playbook. So how much will he even see in his first week there?
No, you're absolutely right. You definitely need to not take 1 week of production, good or bad, and kind of let it affect your thought process and decision making in terms of Demaryius Thomas. But give it a couple of weeks. He'll definitely be there on the waiver wire. I don't know the ownage percentage of Demaryius Thomas right now, but I gotta imagine it's super duper low. But
I'm gonna guess around 15 on Yahoo, and I'm gonna check here in a second.
Dude, that, but. No, I mean Darnold. If you have him as a fantasy quarterback, one, good luck. Two, I think his production might go up a little bit.
Demaryius Thomas owned 18% Yahoo.
Wow.
Yeah.
Almost in the dot. Props to you.
All right. What do we got next?
Biggest Week 1 surprises.
Good and bad. So kind of like studs and duds. I feel like we could have very similar lists, and I don't know if you did this. Did you do like one per position, or how did you go about doing this?
So I just picked like 3 or 4 people.
Okay, so I have 5, and it's not by position at all. So Sammy Watkins, obviously, I feel like is at the top of the list. And actually, a lot of these are going to be receivers, both ways. So Sammy Watkins, John Ross in Cincinnati, like I said, without A.J. Green, Tyler Boyd taking a lot of pressure off of him, so John Ross was the big beneficiary there on Sunday. Against a Seattle defense, with Andy Dalton having a career game, John Ross came out huge, popular waiver wire ad. Hollywood Brown, you got to mention him. His first 2 catches go for touchdowns, long touchdowns, and Lamar Jackson had a fantastic day, and that he was the biggest beneficiary there against the Dolphins defense, which I don't even know if you want to call it a defense. Like,
yeah, we'll see. I mean, we don't know whether or not to call it a defense, and you have players calling their agents to try to get the hell out
right.
of there. So,
yeah, they're gonna even have 11 people to play defense. Unfortunately, going against the Steelers, Philip Dorsett, 2 touchdowns. Josh Gordon did have one. Edelman had an okay game, but really, Philip Dorsett comes out of that as the top receiver from New England in that Week 1 matchup with the Steelers, which I would not have seen coming. And then my last one, finally go into a different position here at quarterback, Case Keenum, who was the 3rd or 4th highest scoring quarterback this week. Washington did not see that one coming whatsoever. So Case Keenum rounds out my studs.
For sure, yeah, I have a lot of the same players. Like I mentioned, I only had 3, so I had Sammy Watkins, Deshaun Jackson, and then Marquise Brown.
Deshaun Jackson, yeah.
Yep, Deshaun Jackson, 8 catches, 154 yards, and 2 touchdowns. To kind of touch base on Sammy Watkins a little bit, with Tyreek Hill kind of going out, I think that opened up a lot of roles for him. It looks like Hill's going to be out for quite some time. There's no official decision on that.
Yeah.
But that's definitely something to monitor. But Sammy Watkins, I personally don't trust him. We've seen this trick before. He goes out, he has a great game, and then he can't follow it up the week after. So definitely a week 1 surprise for me. Already mentioned Deshaun Jackson. I really like Deshaun Jackson personally. It's nice to see him kind of get back into that.
I'm so mad he played anywhere besides Philly in his career.
Yeah. I didn't mind him playing in Tampa Bay. I thought he looked pretty dope in those uniforms. But him, and then obviously Marquise Brown, I was super high on him coming out of the draft. A lot of the Steelers fans didn't want to listen to me when I said he was going to be a problem for the league. And, hopefully they don't have to find out the hard way. But, yeah, Marquise Brown, 4 receptions, 147 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Monster day. We'll see if he can keep it up on week 2.
And would have been a lot bigger if that game didn't get out of hand.
Oh, yeah. Most definitely, yeah. So, biggest duds for week 1. Who'd you have?
A lot of these ones hit home with my fantasy teams. I went 2-2 this week, so it wasn't horrible. But I had to come back last night. Josh Jacobs getting 20-plus points for me saved one of my games. So, but my duds, Mike Evans, who I kind of already touched on with you prior to starting, because Chris Godwin was one of my studs for last week, must start, and he salvaged his day with a touchdown. Still didn't have that big of a game. Mike Evans was terrible. He had 28 receiving yards, just 2 receptions. Devontae Adams, another receiver that I own in the league, 4 receptions, 36 yards. There was really nothing positive to take from that Thursday night game that kicked off the season, as evidenced by 2 of my other guys, being Aaron Jones and David Montgomery. These are all guys that I own in fantasy, by the way, which is why they're in this category, because they really hurt me. But and you know what? Montgomery wasn't even a product of himself, because I thought that he looked pretty sharp there with those early touches, and it was just, never mind, we're going to give the ball to Mike Davis. And I don't understand what they were doing. Matt Nagy on Thursday night, I'm sorry, I know that you have a great offensive mind, but I really question a lot of things that happened in that game.
It might be, a case of him trying to be too cute.
Yeah.
We saw that in Arizona. Cliff Kingsbury, for the first 3 quarters of that Cardinals game, really tried being super cute with some of the play calls, and it ended up hurting them. So I have a lot of the same duds. I don't know if you have any more.
My last one is Devontae Freeman, who I'm expecting to bounce back year from, but not off to a great start.
Yeah, Mike Evans, 2 catches for 28 yards. Definitely you need more out of your wide receiver 1. David Montgomery / Aaron Jones kind of limped them together just because 2 terrible performances. I think Montgomery had maybe 6 points, and Aaron Jones finished with 4. And I have Baker Mayfield, who went 25 for 38, 285 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 interceptions.
3 interceptions all in the 4th quarter, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're taking consideration expectation there, which I think you have to. The matchup with Tennessee, which I don't think would have been necessarily was a great matchup on paper. I mean, that's one of the better secondaries in the league. But still, Baker Mayfield at home with all the weapons he had probably still was in most people's top 5 quarterbacks for week 1. And yeah, the way that they came out, not a great start for Cleveland, who still hasn't won an opener since 2004? 4? Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. Not great, Tom. But yeah, that's it. I had a lot of duds on my fantasy teams as well. Josh Jacobs got to come back for you. Kind of railed me, where. So fantasy football, gotta love it.
Yeah. And I'm a Jacobs owner in multiple leagues, so he didn't get enough to save me in the one league, but I won by like 5 points in another because of that performance. So, moving on, what do we got next?
So a segment that you had wanted to introduce, and I thought it was a really good idea.
Yeah.
Good.
So top 5 performers, as we all know, you guys want to look at the top 5 from week 1, and what we're going to do with that is take those top 5 and say, do we think that guy can finish in the top 5 for next week? So you look at the quarterbacks, and obviously, you're kind of the ESPN guy on this show. I use Yahoo as my format, so it's nice to have that variance. If there is anything different, just, obviously let me know. But top 5 quarterbacks as far as Yahoo goes for week 1 were Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Pat Mahomes, Case Keenum, Deshaun Watson.
So it's a little bit of the same. It was Jackson, Prescott, Watson, Stafford, and Mahomes running off the top 5. So Keenum wasn't in the top 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so you look at those guys, and you look at who they play in week 2. Out of those guys, which ones, if any, do you see staying in the top 5?
I think you got to trust Lamar Jackson. He's playing against the Cardinals this week. Just let Matthew Stafford give a top 5 quarterback performance as far as ESPN goes. So he can get it down on both the air and the ground. And I think if any of those top 5 quarterbacks outside of Mahomes, obviously, are going to repeat for a secondary performance in the top 5, I think it's going to be Lamar Jackson, just because his playmaking ability is phenomenal. And he's on the Baltimore Ravens team that runs the ball probably 66% of the time. So I think you really have to like that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would say that I see Jackson Mahomes stay in the top 5 for sure. Like you said, your top 5 was a little different, so Keenum wasn't in there. Obviously, I'm not keeping Keenum in there for week 2. In the other 2, Deshaun Watson plays against Jacksonville at home, and Dak Prescott travels to Washington to play the Redskins. No, I'm just going to stick with Lamar Jackson and Mahomes being in the top 5. I think they're joined by other people.
Yeah, Mahomes obviously, and we talked about this last week. You almost have to have him in your top 5 just because of the crazy talent production he has in Kansas City.
Yeah, he could be playing against the 70s Steelers defense. I don't care.
Yeah, definitely. So the Jaguars, which is Deshaun Watson's matchup in week 2, is kind of interesting to me. On paper, they have really tough defense, but if you look at the numbers, they gave up almost 500 yards of offense on Sunday. So if Deshaun Watson's healthy, he was having a little bit of the back problems on Monday Night Football. So I think if he's fully healthy, he can absolutely repeat as a top 5 performer. So Dak Prescott, they allowed about 300 yards passing to Philly, maybe a little bit more to Carson Wentz. So I think Zeke's going to be a little bit more involved in the game plan moving forward. So that might take away just a tad bit opportunity from Prescott. So I don't think he'll finish top 5, but I do think he'll finish top 10, kind of around that buffer area.
Yeah. I'm with you. The Jaguars' defense is weird, man. And as far as Deshaun Watson goes, I mean, that line is what you got to worry about. It's not Watson himself. It's just, can that line keep him upright? Yeah. They invested, obviously, heavily with the draft capital to get Laramie Tunsil. He was pretty good last night, actually, but there was one time where the dude burst off the ball, gave Watson a lick, and Watson stayed down for a little bit. So, and Watson, multiple times, that touchdown run, it looked like he got banged up. Throwing that last touchdown that he did to Kenny Still. So there were multiple times where there was some injury scare to Watson because of that offensive line. So you really just got to hope he can stay upright for 16 games. Yeah,
he spent a lot of time in the medical tent, too. I know the ESPN broadcast team did a really good job of reminding people that throughout the game. So, Deshaun Watson, this isn't his first go-around with injuries. He had the unfortunate injury last year that kind of kept him out, but if he can stay healthy, he's definitely top 5 quarterback season long, but definitely next week against Jacksonville as well.
Yeah, Beefy just came in here. He said Fournette or Jacobs for RB2. Chubb is his running back 1. Godwin or Robinson or one of those running backs in his flex.
Ooh.
Okay, so I'm assuming we're talking about Allen Robinson here. I mean, he can. I'm going to go with that assumption.
Okay.
So. Well, we got Fournette playing against Houston, as we just said. Who does Jacobs plays KC. Man. I don't know, because Houston's run defense was pretty good last year.
Yeah, it was, and Kansas City's run defense was nothing to write home about either. But Frank Clark is on that defense now. Tyrann Matthews on that defense will be playing a little bit more in the box. So it's almost like a personal preference. I personally would go Jacobs just because of I'm assuming it's a PPR league. So if it is PPR, then I'll go Jacobs just because of the more pass catching opportunities for him.
Well, now, but do you put Fournette then in your Fletch conversation over Godwin or Robinson? Because I'm with you as far as Jacobs as the RB2.
That's tough, man. How did Godwin do last week? Obviously not phenomenal.
50 yards and a touchdown? Something like that?
Sure. I mean, it definitely wouldn't be a bad idea to plug Fournette into
Tampa plays Carolina. They play on Thursday night, though.
Ooh, so that's short week. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, short week. You saw what Winston was in week 1.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of playing my Thursday night players in fantasy football unless I absolutely have to. So I think if I were constructing that roster, I would go Fournette as RB2, and then I would put Josh Jacobs into the flex.
And then Allen Robinson plays against Denver. So, I mean, he put him in the conversation. I think I'm with you. I think I use both running backs in this situation.
Yeah, I'm just not sure if Allen Robinson is actually the guy in Chicago. Granted, he did have a really nice week 1, but who knows?
I don't know how.
Yeah. Maybe Matt Nagy reverts back to the run game next Sunday. Maybe he decides to spread it out a little bit more to Anthony Miller and Trey Burton, those kind of guys. So who knows? Who knows what Matt Nagy's going to do? Nobody does.
But big shout out to Allen Robinson for having over 100 yards in that game. Crazy. In a game where the offense was terrible from both sides.
Yeah, you definitely expected the NFL to kind of put together a electric start to the 2019 season, given it was the 100th anniversary celebration, and on paper that seemed like a really fun matchup to watch. But God, that was a terrible game.
Yeah. Okay, so we kind of got off topic there. Thanks, Beefy.
Yeah.
Jump into the running backs that finished in the top 5 last week. Once again, we could see some variance here due to the platform that you play on. But at least as far as Yahoo goes, this is PPR, by the way. Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, David Johnson.
Yep, exact top 5.
Okay, so now I got to switch over here. Give me one sec. All right, so week 2 matchups for those guys. So McCaffrey, obviously, we just talked about Carolina. They play on a short week against Tampa. Dalvin Cook plays Green Bay. Eckler plays against Detroit. David Johnson against Baltimore. And Derrick Henry against Indianapolis.
Yeah, so I got Christian McCaffrey remaining in the top 5.
Yep.
Short week might actually benefit him just because defense might be a little bit more wore down. Playbooks are going to be a little bit more simplified, which will just allow him to do his thing. So Christian McCaffrey, I think he had 11 receptions last week. So I don't expect him to exactly. Yeah, I don't expect him to hit that in week 2. But he's definitely one of the best pass catching running backs in the league. So Austin Eckler, I think Detroit, who actually just faced David Johnson, another top 5 running back. So I think as long as Eckler can kind of remain as that pass catching running back, which I don't see why he wouldn't. Justin Jackson isn't going to take any of those targets away from him. So I'll go him. David Johnson is an interesting guy. He's going against Baltimore this upcoming week. They allow just 21 rushing yards. Granted, it was against the Miami Dolphins, and they don't exactly have the offensive firepower as the Cardinals do. So I like DJ, but I don't like him enough to finish top 5. Dalvin Cook, I'm going to say no. Unfortunately, I do really like Dalvin. So Green Bay gave up only 46 yards to a fairly decently talented Bears running back core. And then Derrick Henry, no. I'm not a Derrick Henry guy. I don't think he'll be able to sustain it.
Yeah, I mean, that was a nice performance and everything, but I'm still of the mindset they have to be ahead in the game for him to take that much work away from I feel like Dion Lewis is going to be more involved than he was week 1. And, Derrick Henry's obviously, the workhorse back there, if you will, or whatever. He's going to run the ball on first, second down, maybe. But if Tennessee's trailing in the game, Dion Lewis is going to get a lot more run than he did in week 1. So, I'm with you. I'm not that high on Derrick Henry. I don't think he's a bad, flex play by any means or anything like that. But we're talking top 5 here. I would obviously have Christian McCaffrey in my top 5. Like you said, he just caught 11 passes. I don't think you can predict him to catch 11 passes each week, but if I open up a box score and I see that he caught 11 passes, I'm not surprised. So it's something that he is capable of every single week. My top 5 for this week, though, I think that's the only one that I'm including. Dalvin Cook is probably right on the outside going against Green Bay at Green Bay. They're expecting rain, so obviously it could get a little bit more run heavy. But Green Bay spent a lot of money on that defense, and it showed in week 1, like you said, limiting the Bears. But yeah, I'm honestly a believer in that Green Bay defense. I think Dalvin Cook will have a nice game, but once again, we're talking top 5 here. So I think that's the only guy I'm going to stick with. I don't like David Johnson's matchup really against Baltimore that much. Austin Eckler against Detroit, at Detroit, probably right on the cusp for me, but once again, just on the outside of the top 5 because you have Barkley going against Buffalo. He's going to have a monster game. McCaffrey, Zeke Elliott goes to Washington. Alvin Kamara is going to be in a shootout against the Rams, and a guy like Le'Veon Bell will play against Cleveland on Monday night. I don't know. So I think that Austin Eckler is right on the outside of the top 5, leaving only McCaffrey from week 1 into week 2.
For sure.
Wide receivers. This is where it definitely, I feel like, could change from ESPN, but we'll see. Sammy Watkins, Deshaun Jackson, John Ross, Hopkins, and Hollywood Brown.
Yep, exactly in that order.
All right. Okay, so see, this is tough because week 1, like, how many of those guys would you have expected to be in the top 5?
None.
Like,
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, Hopkins, but
well, Hopkins is actually the only guy I have returning in the top 5 next week. I think he's the only guy who can sustain like a week-to-week performance like he did. Marquise Brown, while he's a great talent, I don't think he'll be able to do that again. Especially being featured in a very run-heavy Ravens offense. John Ross the third, he's still dropping footballs. We'll see if he can stay healthy in week 2.
Prime Demarius.
Clearly not his biggest fan. Yeah, Prime Demarius, shout out to him. Deshaun Jackson is like the literal definition of boom or bust when it comes to fantasy football. And while I do really like him, and maybe he does have a role carved out for him in Philly, I just can't expect him to be top 5 again next week. And then Sammy Watkins, same exact thing. Every year he has those 2 or 3 games where he'll just absolutely go off and he'll pop off for a couple touchdowns. So does he go top 5 again? Maybe not, just because defenses might be a little bit more prepped for him.
Yeah, I think the guy to watch in KC might be Mecole Hardman, because Sammy Watkins, like you said, is going to take the attention of people now. He seems to blow up for one of those games every single week. Just happened to happen on week 1 this year, and obviously Tyreek Hill going down, he was a big beneficiary of that. But I would not expect a repeat performance. Hopkins has a tough matchup going against Jacksonville. You expect Jalen Ramsey to follow him around the field, but Hopkins has been fine with that. I mean, Hopkins still puts up his numbers when going against Jacksonville, and I think that he still gets into your top 5 next week, even with that tough matchup.
Yeah, I completely agree. DeAndre Hopkins is one of those guys. He's almost matchup-proof, isn't he? I can't remember one time where he's been like truly shut down by like one specific cornerback where he wasn't like hurt or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, so he'd be my only returning guy, and you said the same thing. So.
Yep.
Tight end, Evan Ingram, T.J. Hawkinson, Mark Andrews, Delaney Walker, Austin Hooper.
Yep, in that order.
Okay. Man, looking at this list, I feel I want to say an apology on here. There was somebody that I told to not use on Twitter to not use T.J. Hawkinson for week 1. So I'd like to publicly apologize to them for that. Rookie tight ends, they never seem to find their stride right away. T.J. Hawkinson managed to do it in week 1. He had a monstrous game, and obviously, because he's number 2 on this list. So let's take a look now at their week 2 matchups. Also, Herb would like to apologize. He broke Nick Foles, which is becoming a theme on this show with him and Philly or former Philly quarterbacks.
Hey,
because he predicted Carson Wentz to tear his ACL.
If he can carry that look over to the Flyers this year, it'd be great.
Yeah, it's that's what I'm saying. Start using it for evil. So looking at this, I would say Evan Ingram's my guy to lock in to be in the top 5 for week 2. They go against Buffalo. He's the top pass catching option, maybe Barkley actually, but right there with him, especially with Sterling Shepard in concussion protocol this week. We'll see if he can even suit up against Buffalo. But Delaney Walker's probably right on the cusp there, too. At least in projections here for Yahoo, they have him as tight end 6 going into this week against Indianapolis. Pretty good week against Cleveland, especially backing it up after the talk, saying they are who he thought they were. But, I mean, you got to have Kelsey, Ertz, and Kittle in your top 3 every week, even regardless of what they did week 1. So you factor in those 3 and Evan Ingram, and it's, do I give Delaney Walker the 5th spot, or a guy like Hunter Henry, who I'm high on? They play Detroit, and I think I'm leaning that way, so Walker will probably be on the outside a little bit, meaning Evan Ingram's my only returner from week 1 into week 2.
Definitely, yeah. So, obviously, like you said, you have to have the trio of Kittle, Ertz, and Kelsey into your top 3 every week. I've been pounding at the table for Evan Ingram, and I don't care if it's only for 1 week. I am so happy that I was right about something on the show, because that is a rare occurrence, obviously. So
Mark it
Evan
down.
Ingram, Evan Ingram, obviously, I'm super high on him. Target machine, especially, like you said, Sterling Shepard going into concussion protocol, might not even play this week. TJ Hawkinson, maybe, he's definitely a lot better than, a lot more used than we thought he was going to initially be. The touchdown really helped. I'm not sure what do you know how many catches he had last week by chance?
I want to say 8.
Okay. So definitely, really solid numbers for a rookie tight end, or just a tight end in general, just because the position is so top heavy. Mm-hmm. Mark Andrews is probably the only other guy besides Ingram on this list that I can realistically see going to the top 5 again. Even with Hollywood Brown popping off, even with the Ravens kind of taking control of the game early on and just riding it out from there, he still managed to be the 3rd-ranked tight end in terms of production. So that kind of just speaks to how much the Ravens love him and how much Lamar Jackson trusts him throwing him the football. Delaney Walker and Austin Hooper are kind of the same class for me. I think they're kind of right around that fringe, tight end 6, tight end 8 area around there. But in terms of just repeating top 5, I'll probably give them, the benefit of them not going in there again.
Boom. Yeah, Austin Hooper's another guy that was right on the edge for me, but man, it's just when you have the top 3 that you do, and you only have 2 spots available, and I'm with you. I'm waiting for Evan Ingram to join those guys, so then it's a top 4.
Yeah, that'd be great, and hopefully Evan Ingram can establish himself as a guy that a lot of people thought, maybe a tight end like David Njoku or OJ Howard would establish themselves as. So, the opportunity is there for him. He's just got to take it. Yep.
And he can definitely build on that this week with, like we said, no clue about if Sterling Shepard's going to be out there. So, all right, so best waiver values for this week. This is what everybody's waiting for. As we mentioned, you can't win your draft, or you can't win your league at the draft. It's about the waiver wire. You got to make the right moves along the way to build your team up, and this is how you do it, by listening to this show and picking up the guys that we're about to tell you about. Yeah, Beefy just said Evan Ingram was targeted 14 times on Sunday.
Love it. Inject that into my veins.
Hawkinson actually he had 6 receptions on 9 targets, but he had over 100 yards receiving.
You have to take it, including the touchdown as well. I don't think you can do that again, but still, that gives you a lot of promise that he'll be a focal point of that offense.
And even being a rookie, there was kind of signs of that. The 3rd preseason game where the starters were playing, he was targeted 5 times by Matt Stafford. So, obviously pretty quick chemistry there. Matt Stafford likes him a lot. Okay, so waiver wire, kind of targeting guys owned around that 50% range that are going to be available to you guys to plug and play week 2 if you need to. Maybe you had an injury, maybe you're just going based off matchups, looking at a guy here. I know that this quarterback is owned because it's owned by somebody in the chat, but he's only owned in 32% of the leagues. Josh Allen this week against the Giants. The Giants do not have a defense. Very similar to the Miami Dolphins, the Giants do not have a defense. Josh Allen is projected, let me see here, I know he was in the top 15 quarterbacks, but the Giants, even though it is just 1 week, have the 2nd worst defense to quarterbacks behind only Miami. So I am definitely hammering Josh Allen this week, even though weather may be an issue. obviously, weather can change any day, but as of right now, it is supposed to rain on Sunday. But Josh Allen, once again, that's a guy that adds points with his legs as well. So I'm a big fan of Josh Allen on Sunday against the Giants.
Yeah, I was about to say, for as bad as the Giants' defense has been and Josh Allen's running capabilities, that kind of gives you a hopeful high floor to work with. Even if it does rain, like you said, he can still pick up points on the ground, so that's really good for fantasy owners. So that was actually my guy. That was my quarterback, Josh Allen. I don't think he's going to necessarily carve up the Giants' defense through the air like Dak Prescott.
Yeah, if for some reason you're in a lead where you lose a point for an incompletion, take everything I just said away. Find somebody else.
Yeah, but I think at the end of the day, if you're looking for a streaming quarterback option, I think Josh Allen might be your best bet just based on the matchup this week. So running back, transitioning there, I have Chris Thompson, which is owned about 19% of ESPN leagues going against the Cowboys. So Darius Geis is out of the picture now. He is supposed to have a meniscus problem. Going to be out for a while. They are entertaining the IR position for him. So long story short, it's just going to be Chris Thompson and Adrian Peterson. Thompson has a lot of pass catching duties ahead of him. He got 7 receptions for 68 yards last week, and I think that trend might continue even with the Redskins potentially being behind a lot in this game.
Yeah, I'm with you, but just to stay on that same theme with that same team, Adrian Peterson's owning 39% of the leagues. If guys need to be down there, both need their fair share of work. I wouldn't mind having either one of those backs. It's definitely going to be Chris Thompson, I think, is the main guy, especially because you expect the Redskins to be trailing in games. He's the pass-catching back. It just makes sense for Chris Thompson to get more run there. But if you're looking, at this point, just trying to throw a dart, Adrian Peterson was relatively productive there last year. Like I said, owning only 39% of the leads. They play the Cowboys this week. Not necessarily a great matchup, but they did give up the 8th most fantasy points going against Barkley, obviously, last week. But, not a bad dart throw if you're just looking for a running back that's going to get some guaranteed touches. Adrian Peterson's going to run the ball a little bit on Sunday. But I do think he does give most of the work to Thompson.
Yeah, it's 1A or 1B when it comes to either of those Redskins running backs. I just personally think due to game flow, I think the Cowboys might get up on the Redskins a little bit early. But then we thought that last week. We thought Philly was going to jump all over them, and they got up to a 17-0 lead. So, who knows? That's the fun of the NFL. But I think in PPR matchups, Chris Thompson might be the guy down.
Definitely. Yeah, I just want to pick up and Chris Thompson. So if anybody's listening to this and is one of my leagues, don't go place a claim on him.
Well, we all know who the receiver is, right? The waiver wire receiver pickup.
Go ahead. We'll see if you speak
Marquise
for both of us. You know what? I got another one for people just because. Yeah, I figured you were just say Marquise Brown. I would have said Marquise Brown, but how many? What does he own in ESPN?
1.1% of leagues.
Goodness gracious. Yeah, because he was out for a lot of training camp, due to injury and stuff.
That was the big question mark, was his health coming into 2019. So much to where whenever I was in Vegas a couple months ago, just about a month ago, I almost threw $100 down on the prop bet for Marquise Brown. The over-under for his catches was at 35 for 2019. 35. So, wow. I don't think Vegas can think he can stay healthy.
Right. You know what? I talked about this guy last week. I talked about him a little bit already. Still in less than 50% of leagues. If you're playing in a PPR league, I think that you need to have Jamison Crowder on your roster right now. Owning 47% of the leagues. They played Cleveland this week. He caught 14 passes. Somehow didn't have 100 yards receiving, but caught 14 passes last week from Sam Darnold. He's going to be the main slot guy for the Jets. I know Demaryius Thomas is there now. To me, that doesn't affect his value. Jamison Crowder is, at least in my mind right now, a better own than Robbie Anderson for the Jets, especially in PPR leagues.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. Just building off of the performance on Sunday, Jamison Crowder tore it up. He was by far Darnold's favorite target. He looks like the number one guy right now, and he still might be the number one even after getting Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah. I do want to say, Herb's bringing up the latest in the Antonio Brown saga. I don't know if you've looked at your phone during this at all. I don't want to talk too much about it because it's just an accusation. I don't want to say something that isn't true. But just to read verbatim the information that's being put out there right now, the latest on this, and I just retweeted it. So, breaking, Antonio Brown has been accused of 3 separate incidents of sexual assault and rape, according to federal lawsuit filed Tuesday. So, once again, there's no definite truth to this. I am just reading a tweet, reading accusations, as Donnie takes a sip of his drink. Is that supposed to represent tea? Are you sipping tea?
Oh no, I was that was a metaphorical shot of whiskey there, man. Wow, those are heavy.
Yeah. So once again, I'm not putting I'm not throwing out any information other than that's the tweet that I'm reading as far as a report those has been filed. That's it. There's nothing. It's accusations as of right now. That's it.
So, given that information, I think he'll still play on Sunday. Unless anything more develops in this case, I can't foresee the Patriots or even the league kind of forcing him to step away from football until they get like a legitimate case from this.
Right. I'm with you. Yeah. As of right now, it doesn't have any bearing to me.
For sure.
So tight end, you looked at the waiver wire. Darren Waller, owning 45% of the leagues, plays Kansas City. Kind of a middle of the pack matchup when you think about the points that they give up to tight ends. But Waller, to me, is going to be the biggest beneficiary from the Antonio Brown saga, how it affected the Raiders. Looked like an absolute freak. This is a guy that finally seems like he's got his footing in the lead. Pretty troubled past, but great for him that he's finally seemed to find a home with all that talent that he has. You look at Tyrell Williams taking some attention away. I expect Hunter Renfrow to have a bigger part of the offense than he did in Week 1, only being targeted like 3 times in the slot there. I think that he will have a role. But as long as Derek Carr is going to play close to what he did Week 1, I think Darren Waller is a legit tight end to own. And being owned in only 45% of the leagues, that's a guy that I'm taking a chance on in Week 2.
Yeah, definitely can't blame you at all. He was the Hard Knocks story that everybody loved to follow. So definitely good to see him do well, especially in his first game of the pros. So my guy is definitely going to be T.J. Hawkinson, owned in 6.5% of the ESPN leagues, kind of the low-picking fruit on the tree, if you will. Super productive in his first game. Caught a touchdown. I think you said 6 receptions for over 100 yards. Go against the Chargers this week. And, as long as Matthew Stafford can keep throwing the ball 40, 45 times a game, you got to love the tight end in Detroit. He somehow managed to be more productive than Eric Ebron ever was in Detroit, which is mind-blowing to me. But,
right.
That's besides the point. I think, they took Hawkinson in the first round for a reason, and I think they plan on using him. Chargers defense didn't look all that great against Jacoby Brissett. I don't know the numbers for Ebron. I know he almost had a touchdown that was nearly dropped. But no, Hawkinson, I think he'll be a good play, especially given he's owned in only 6.5% of leagues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's moderately low. I think it's a little bit higher in Yahoo leagues that he's owned in. Let me take a look here because there's a league where I'm also trying to claim him. So once again, if you're in a league with me, wow, are you serious? He's owned in 54% of Yahoo leagues.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Compared to 6.5 in ESPN. What the heck are people doing from one format to the other there? That's a crazy jump.
Hey, diversity. That's what we bring.
Yeah. Man, okay. So to wrap things up here, I think this is our last segment. No, we have the injury report as well. So, who came out of Week 2 not healthy? I'm sorry, Week 1 not healthy.
You're good. Tevin Coleman has a sprained ankle. He's expecting to miss some time, and you're going to start hearing this phrase a lot. You're going to start hearing sometime, air quotes, a lot, just because there's no clear indication on when they'll be coming back. Sorry, I just got the Schefter update, so I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything.
Yep.
So Shanahan said the IR, isn't necessarily a possibility for Coleman. So he's definitely going to miss the next couple of games, but his long-term status is unknown. Darius Geis, like we talked about earlier, has a knee injury. He's going to miss, air quote, significant time with that meniscus injury. So his future is kind of cloudy right now. They might put him on IR. The earliest he could come back, I believe, would be Week 10. Juju Smith-Schuster, our Pittsburgh boy, X-rays came back negative on a leg injury he suffered late in the fourth quarter. He is expected to suit up Week 2, so I don't foresee anything slowing him down. Joe Mixon, so the MRI results came back all good on his ankle sprain. So, he might be able to play this week, but he's listed as doubtful. So if you're a Joe Mixon owner, definitely kind of start perusing the waiver wire pickups.
Gio Bernard.
Yep, Gio Bernard, another good, good handcuff for him. Tyreek Hill, the big news for fantasy owners. He is potentially going to be hitting the Week 8 IR spot with a shoulder injury. So the news should kind of come within the next couple of days. If you're listening to the rebroadcast of this on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you can find us, that news might be out already. So you can just make sure you're paying close attention to that if you're a Tyreek Hill owner. And finally, Devin Funchess, broken collarbone. He went to IR. So the coach said that it wasn't season ending, but like I said earlier, the earliest he can come back if he goes on the kind of not full IR would be week 10.
Yeah. Well, word to Herb, Nick Foles as well. So Gardner Minshew's now QB1 in Jacksonville.
Josh Dobbs, QB1.
We'll see how that plays out. But yeah, Pittsburgh did trade Josh Dobbs to Jacksonville for a 5th-round pick. Yeah, with those injuries that you just mentioned, Tevin Coleman and Matt Breida were kind of a 2-back thing going on in San Fran. Matt Breida did the bulk of the run now. But who was the other running back there that was like Restart Morris or something like that? He looked good for a brief period of time last year because Breida somehow had a productive year last year. Even though he had an injury. No, dang it, what's his name? Hold on, I'm looking up real quick because I saw that he was a popular trending addition. Raheem Mostert, however the hell you say his last name. Yeah. There were a couple games last year where he was relatively productive in the absence of Matt Breida, but Matt Breida obviously is going to get the bulk of the carries now. He was already listed as the starter for them, so we'll be interested to see what he does going forward. You mentioned with Geis, that could be like a 2-back thing now, but Chris Thompson's definitely the back to own for right now for me. We expect that the Redskins will be trailing most of the time, and they're going to be pass heavy, and Chris Thompson's the pass receiving back, so that's the way to go. Tyreek Hill, obviously Sammy Watkins had a huge game. Excuse me. But, I mentioned Mecole Hardman as well, has a very similar skill set to Tyreek Hill. Will be interesting to see how he does. Is that a guy I would add right now? I don't know. Once again, it's probably a guy that I would like to see play a game, but then you could also potentially end up missing out on him because if you can't get the jump on him right away. Depends on how many bench spots you have. It might be worth an addition, especially if you're like an IR spot and you don't even have to drop somebody. Say you're putting like the Tyreek Hill on the IR to pick him up. Right. Will be interesting. Who you said Funchess. As far as the other guys there, I mean, obviously T.Y. Hilton was already the number 1 receiver. Maybe a little bit enough to take there for Paris Campbell. I don't know
by the way, the Colts did not look bad on Sunday. Yeah. They did not look like the team we thought they were going to look like.
Right. They still look very competitive. And, we kind of talked about Jacoby Brissett on here not having much fantasy value, and I stick with that. But I think he's a better real-life quarterback than fantasy quarterback. And I think that the Colts can still be in football games with him. They have a very good offensive line. They have a better defense than people give them credit for. They added Justin Houston this offseason to that. Malik Hooker, shout out to the Whippy, was an absolute freak on the back end. And obviously Darius Leonard in the middle. But yeah, the Colts are, they're a decent team. I think that they'll compete for a playoff spot. That division's pretty much wide open, although, the Jaguars without Foles, we'll see what Gardner Minshew can do. Or Josh Dobbs. Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. Rocket science.
Who else did we mention? Was anybody else hurt?
Did you talk about Juju at all?
Juju. So, yeah, I mean, that's a guy that we don't expect to miss time. If he were to miss a game, for one, I don't know what the Steelers are doing on Sunday. But you would think it would be hopefully Moncrief can catch the ball on Sunday. James Washington would probably be the guy to look at there, though. Deontay Johnson only played 24 snaps. That would probably, that's obviously going to go up. It would go up on Sunday if Juju were for some reason to miss that game. But I would think that Washington would probably be the guy you would want to target if you're playing a Steelers receiver in that game.
Yeah, completely agree. Tell the Steelers at the kickoff at 1 o'clock. Last week it didn't look like they knew when the game was. So 1 o'clock.
They thought they were Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
I'll be at the game. First game as a season ticket holder.
Hey. That's exciting.
Looking forward to it. And then the last segment that we got is your can't miss start for each position. So one guy at the position, I mean, it's pretty easy, I feel like, to do this. I mean, it's just going to be basic answers across the board, pretty much, I feel like. So, look what Lamar Jackson did to Miami last week. That's who Tom Brady plays this week. Hopefully for him, we'll see how the rest of this plays out the rest of the week. Antonio Brown there. Tom Brady against Miami is my must-start for this week. Miami, once again, doesn't have a defense. I'm not even sure if they know that they're in the NFL right now, but they're going to be playing against the Patriots on Sunday, and Tom Brady, with all the weapons he has at his disposal, we'll see in Miami. That game's going to be over in the first quarter.
That was actually my guy as well. Tom Brady, kind of my hammer home quarterback. Obviously, after seeing what the Ravens did to them, 643 total yards given up against the Baltimore Ravens last week. You have to think with the addition of Antonio Brown and how systematic that Patriots offense works, it could get really ugly really quick. I think you mentioned before we started recording that the Patriots line was only minus 18. Was that
minus 18.5? Yeah, that's the yeah.
But I would probably put my life savings on them covering that.
Yeah, and also, I mentioned how tough Miami tends to play them there, but Miami's never been in this position before. Yeah. Miami's typically, hovering around that 6-10 to 9-7 range as far as a record of mediocrity. But this year, they're just going all in on this tank and fully embracing it, which, I don't necessarily disagree with. I think it's time for them to rebuild, and hopefully they do it the right way. But as of right now, they're not in any position to compete with the Patriots. And, yeah, like you said, if you're a betting person, and I don't know if Cody Coleman's still here, but shout out to CK Betts. 18.5, I would fully expect the Patriots to cover it. And I swear it's got a lot brighter in my basement. It's like something shining down on me as I'm talking about the Patriots.
That's not a good sign. What are you doing?
No, I know. I feel like I'm about to get sucked up or something. Okay, so we both have Brady.
Yep. Who's your running back?
My running back this week, and my running back and receiver are both playing the same game. I expect this to be an absolute shootout. It, to me, is going to be the best game of the week. New Orleans against the Rams, rematch of the NFC Championship. Alvin Kamara is my running back, and you know what? I'll just say it. Robert Woods is my receiver, both in that game. I expect it to be an absolute shootout, and those are both my must-starts at those positions.
Definitely, yeah. So I think I tried to get a little bit too cute with this one. So I went Leonard Fournette.
You want Matt Nagy on this?
Yeah, I definitely went full Matt Nagy on this. I went Leonard Fournette as my running back. Still managed to hit double-digit fantasy points, besides from fumbling last week against the Chiefs. Plays a Houston defense that gave up 148 yards on the ground last week. Just given the quarterback situation, it might, tend to, shovel more carries towards Fournette's way. He averaged 5 yards a carry last week, so I think if he does get the touches, I think he'll be able to finally produce like he should have last week. My wide receiver, again, trying to get a little cute. Joe Hayden is probably going to miss week 2 for the Steelers, which means that the secondary is wide the fuck open. So I think DK Metcalf is going to have a monster game if Joe Hayden doesn't play, which it looks like he won't. Had 12 fantasy points last week. I think the Steelers will kind of do a good job with Tyler Lockett, with Mike Hilton being lined up on him in the slot. So, I think it's up to DK Metcalf to have a big game, and I think he does.
Dang it, dude. Why you gotta speak this? You're speaking into existence right now.
I know.
I don't want to see DK Metcalf go off in front of my eyes. All right, so tight end. Already talked about him. Evan Ingram plays Buffalo. Start him.
Yeah. So
doesn't even matter who else on your roster.
I completely agree. Start him. I went Darren Waller, your boy, tight end position you suggested for the waivers. Fun fact: he actually played every snap last night against the Oakland Raiders. So they obviously like him. The production is there, at least for from the 1 week sample we have. So start him, throw him out there, see what he can do.
Yeah, like you said, he's only owning like 45% of the league. So that's a guy you could go pick up right now, depending on what your tight end situation looks like. Going into week 2, plug and play him, give him a shot. If he doesn't do well, you can come back here and yell at Donnie next week.
It's me.
All right, well, I mean, that pretty much wraps it up. A lot of great information heading into week 2. Excited to see how things go. Let us know how your teams are looking at this point. Did you win week 1? Did you lose week 1? How confident are you in your team? Is your confidence wavered at all? Are you like a Steelers fan and you think the world's caving in? because of your loss week 1. Tweet at us, let us know. You can tweet at Donnie at Donnie Druin, me, Z23 Smitty, at us at Around the 412. Go like our Facebook, Around the 412, Instagram, Around the 412. If you're listening to this, whether it be on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, right from Spreaker, whatever one of the platforms we're on, head on over to Twitch, follow us, hit the notifications, come join us live next week so you can be one of the great people in the chat that are always interacting with us, and we always love and appreciate that. Head on over to Spreadshirt and grab some of our merch. As you can see, I'm wearing this awesome hat right now. Once again, we are sponsored by Keats Barbershop. That's the shirt that I'm wearing. 180 Brighton Avenue in Rochester. Best barbershop around, hands down. Head on over to podhubnetwork.com. Check out all the great podcasts along with Around the 412. If you're watching this on YouTube, how great do we look right now? Just joking. But anyways, thanks for joining, everybody. 5 episodes in, I speak for myself, and I know I speak for Donnie as well, as we were just texting about it. We're having an absolute blast doing this. Great feedback from everybody, and we appreciate it. We love you guys. Thank you. Can't wait to talk to you guys again next week. Good luck this week in fantasy, and bye-bye.